and running here. I believe we're going on Clubhouse. Yep, I think we're there. I don't know if it's public, so they're going to check with me for that as well. I'm your host, Dumisani Washington, the CEO and founder of says my camera. My camera is off. Okay, what's saying? They say my camera is not on, and that's not a good thing. Let's see if we can get it on. I thought it was on. It just must have gone back off for some reason. I don't know why. Let's try this again. Boom. There we go. My apologies, everyone. There you go. Lights, camera, and action. It's good to be with you all there. My apologies. That's what happens when you go live. Everything is already live. Hello, everyone. I believe we're here live also on Instagram by now. It's a little bit late, so we got that going there. We should be rolling by now on Instagram, on Clubhouse, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. How's everybody doing? This is the Super Black Solidarity with Israel again, and its weekly forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. Again, I'm Dumisani Washington, founder and CEO of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. On today, I believe I'm flying solo. On today, I don't have my trusty co-host with me. On today, our executive director, Mr. Joshua Washington, is, I believe, on his way now. On his way to Paris. He is a recording artist, a professional musician. He does recordings and producing, and his group is performing in Paris later on this week. So we are believing for safe traveling grace for him. And so looking forward to being with you on today. We have a lot to get into on today. Just got through teaching a course, and shout out to Pastor Melva and Pastor Skip of World Outreach Church. There is a World Bible Training Institute, and I am one of the instructors over these next several weeks, having a great time talking about the same variation of the same theme, Israel, Africa, and Black America. We're actually talking about Africa and Black America's prophetic call to Zion. It's a little bit of a different title for the actual teaching that's there, but this theme is going to be throughout. So hello, everyone. Good to have you here. So glad to be with you. So again, each week on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we unpack different topics that deal with Israel, that deal with Africa, with the Black and Jewish communities, geopolitics. We might even get into a little scripture, all of those things when we're talking about this very, very layered discussion. And so this is our newer format over the last several months. We started a couple of years ago, did some things on Clubhouse, and now what we've been able to do is kind of expand it with our eStream and have it on different platforms that are here. Now, I just want to double check one last thing, people, because I want to make sure that the Clubhouse is public. I have a feeling that it may not be, but I'm not really sure how exactly to do anything about that. So let me see here if I can. Nope, there we go again. I'm not sure if I can make my other assistant there a moderator. That doesn't seem to be happening there. So those of you who are maybe looking for that in another way, my apologies. We'll see if we can get that up and running for you as well. All right. So I'm going to do one other thing here because there's several things I want to touch on, and I want to make sure that I go on them through the list. All right. So here's my private chat. I'm just putting that up there for me. First and foremost, we want to give a shout out to IBSI's board member, also our Speakers Bureau chief, also the CEO of DAISY, which is based in South Africa. The DAISY, which stands for Defend, Embrace, Invest in, and Support Israel. And the COO of Club Z for Teens. Yes, she wears all those hats, and a wife and a mother. Miss Olga Meshoe Washington voted number 1 of 25 visionaries. And I believe it's a combination of the Jewish National Fund. It was published in the Jerusalem Post the other day. So shout out to her. I don't have any bells and whistles or anything else like that. I can put on my hat for a celebration, as I've got to put that on, and since I'm celebrating Miss Olga. So Olga, shout out to you, the amazing work that you are doing. It says off. Okay, so it is that. So it's not public. Oh, I see a couple people that are there, and I don't know again what to do about it, making it public. I thought they're going to do that for me, so I don't know how to do that. All right, so on Clubhouse, you all, my apologies. We'll get all that together. I really do apologize. So Olga, congratulations to you on being nominated or being selected as one of the top 25 young visionaries. When you click on the link there that you see, Go ahead and Miss Producer, show me that one again. When you click on that link, you'll see it's 1 through 25. And not only is she on the list, but she was named number 1 on the list. And there's a little profile, a little information about her. So we're so proud of her. So thankful to God for her as both our daughter-in-law and family and all of those things, but also the amazing professional woman that she is. This issue of Israel and Zionism, and especially Africa and the connection, is very much a passion for Olga, has been for years. It just so happens that she and our son met several years ago, similar passion, similar interest, and next thing you know, they are courting and now married. And I tell people, the word of God says, bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you. Bless us with a wonderful daughter-in-law while we were doing the work of Israel and Africa. So we're very grateful for her. So shout out to Olga. Congratulations to you, ma'am. All right. I want to, there's a few topics that are here. Again, with that one being first, of course. And so hello, everyone there on Instagram. I've got my cameras. You know what I noticed is that as we would do the playback, 2 things. First of all, I had to fix the reverse thing, right? Because I would look on the thing and all the words would be backwards and say, oh, you got to hit this little button, right? So old school. And I got to get that. The other thing was that I had, different cameras and different angles, and I wasn't always looking right at people. So I'm always trying to be looking right at you all so that you all can know that I'm talking with you and want to be hearing from you as well. There is a study that's actually done. And Miss Producer, you can put that up here. And I don't know what the title of it is, but what I'm calling here, Black Lives Matter's Effect on Police Lethal Use of Force. It's actually a academic paper that's done. It might have just been, I don't think it was just the abstract. I read it through, and you see it there from the Journal of Urban Economics on the 14th of September, just really recently, just a couple of days ago. Oh, and then shout out to our Jewish brothers and sisters. Shana Tova. Happy New Year to you as well. Great to have you all with us and checking it out. So, Miss Producer, show me that to me one more time. This actual study actually breaks down, if you look at you can find it online, has a discussion about what the actual impact was with Black Lives Matter's activism and law enforcement. And I had a quote. I don't know that I gave you that particular quote, Miss Producer. If I did, you go ahead and put it up there. It's not, it's okay. But there's a specific quote. Actually, Free Black Thought on Twitter shared this particular study, and they quoted that particular thing. And I saw immediately why they quoted that particular part of the article, because it not just speaks to kind of the point. I don't know if that was the author's point that he wanted to make, but he actually cited, I won't quote it verbatim, you check that article out, said that doing the numbers, how he was doing the rubric, they figured that with police drawing back, it never mentions specifically defund the police, but with police drawing back and talking about different resources and different things like that, that they calculated that though there were less police shootings of Black men or shooting of suspects by just sheer number, and it doesn't say what type of shooting, once again, whether it's something that was completely violating someone's rights or whether it was actually apprehending an armed suspect or whatever. It just said the shootings went down, but the actual homicides went up by, they're according to their numbers, some 3,000. Now, I don't know what that time frame was. Was it just the 2020 in terms of the protests and everything, was beyond there? But there were an additional 3,000 homicides that happened. It didn't have the homicides listed by ethnicity. It didn't say it's black, white, or whatever. Just the homicides as a result of the lesser police presence, right? So this was actually part of the study that was released. The first thing that came to my mind in reading the study and then checking out that particular one and kind of doing some digging is what we've talked to you all about several times. So those who've been kind of tuning in with us for a while, you've already heard us several times talk about what's going on in Oakland, California. I'm not getting ready to unpack that again. Not that it's not important, but simply because we have done that. You go back and check on our YouTube page. All the different episodes from the forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America are there. They're titled there. There's different snippets and different outtakes that are there as well. You can check those out, different little excerpts and everything. And some of those excerpts has to do with Oakland, right? So the reason I mentioned that with this study is that this is not the first time that a study has been done that actually discusses the impact of lesser police presence or even the demonization of law enforcement, not to mention the defund the police campaign that was kind of double teamed by both Black Lives Matter and by Jewish Voice for Peace, right? They actually called it first it was called the Deadly Exchange, right? And so if you don't know what that is, I'll remind you again. Deadly Exchange is the term that Jewish Voice for Peace, that it's not its name, right? They call it Jewish Voice for Peace. It's a demonization of Israel and an exploitation of the Black community, the same way the Black Lives Matter does. And Black Lives Matter, they came together and they said that because Israel helps train police in all over the world, particularly after 9/11, right, in different methods of counterterrorism and everything, that somehow when a cop shoots particularly a Black or unarmed person in the United States or anywhere else, particularly the United States, that is somehow Israel's fault. Right? Do you see the mental gymnastics? They have the quote loaded. Go ahead, you give me the quote. Yes, ma'am. Give me the quote. If you have the quote loaded up there, I want to check it out. This is actually the quote from the study. The findings of the event study suggest that the BLM protests led police departments to pull back from interactions with the public and obtain body cameras, leading to increased crime and decreased police killings. Now, you have to read the whole study because it says how the body cams have, by and large, been helpful, both for the police and for the citizens, right? So things can be recorded, things can be looked at and viewed, and you can hopefully employ better law enforcement techniques. Specifically over the 5 years after local BLM protests. Thank you so much for this quote. And the 5 years, those first protests began in 2014, right? So it went from 2014 to 2019. Give me the quote one time. I'm sorry. Thank you. You guys are helping me. Property crime arrests decreased by approximately 12%, while reported murders increased by roughly 11.5%, which is over 3,000 additional homicides. Thank you very much. Over a 5-year period, 3,000 additional homicides as a result of the police pulling back. It didn't even mention defund the police part, right? That didn't even mention that part, right? And particularly in high crime areas, particularly where the Black Lives Matter protests were focused in the inner city, oftentimes, right? Those homicides were overwhelmingly not just Black, but we've already talked about the different studies that they were minors, 18 years and younger, Black children paying for this war on law enforcement, which was supposed to be focused on improving law enforcement. That's what it was supposed to be. How can we do the job better? How can the communities work together with law enforcement, those types of things, when it just became pigs in the blanket, fry them like bacon, which was one of the chances Black Lives Matter would use, right? When it was just the hostility and hatred towards police, when you have Black Lives Matter LA going into the Fairfax district, which is a Jewish district, and defacing and synagogues and yeshivas, that's nothing to do with justice or fighting police brutality. Is about anti-Semitism. It's about hatred for authority. All of these things which are not helping. And we see now these studies that are continue to come through, not helping, making things worse. So this study here was done, again, discussing that very issue. There's a video. We just shot the last of a series of 7 videos in Super Black Solidarity with Israel. Again, this is in Super Black Solidarity with Israel. I'm Dumisani Washington, the founder and CEO. You can go to ibsi.org, find out more about us. You can also donate to our nonprofit. We are a nonprofit organization. Everything that we're able to do, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's here in the States, and I'm going to be saying some more about our events, whether we're taking young people to Africa, to Israel, all those things come from the generosity of our donors. We're nonprofit. All gifts are tax deductible. Go to ibsi.org, click on donate, and we want you to consider becoming a legacy builder. Do I have this? Yes, a legacy builder. I don't have the t-shirt, but I have the mug. A legacy builder. A legacy builder is a monthly giver of anywhere from $10 more and up. So if you would like to do that and partner with that, we would love to have you join us in this march, in this move, when we are strengthening the solidarity between the Black and the Jewish communities in Africa and Israel. There's some other things we have planned as well. There's so much that's on tap. But again, go to ibsi.org. You can click on donate, and you can help us do what it is that we do. And we appreciate you guys so much. So this study is another one of many that have come out. And again, we'll have the link for you there so that you can check it out as well. We have the numbers. We have the data that the demonization of cops, the general demonization of law enforcement, defund the police, deadly exchange, all of those very wrong-headed things are costing lives. According to this particular study, over the last 5 years, 3,000. That's just this study. Over the past 5 years, they calculate that some 3,000 homicides have occurred because of the drawing back of police. And somebody say, well, usually they should be drawing back. When you see it from the perspective of law, I'm not talking about racist law enforcement. I'm talking about those men and women who do their jobs and put their lives on the line. When you see the types of demonization, and you see the types of, often the lack of support that they are getting, sometimes from their city councils, from their district attorneys. This is happening across the country. It is demoralizing to those police officers who are trying to do their jobs, right? And many have quit. Sometimes in the defunding the police, obviously the forces were cut back, and then the crime, particularly homicides, would increase. Ladies and gentlemen, as Thomas Sowell would say, it is ridiculous. He didn't say it this way, I'm saying this way. The people making those decisions aren't actually feeling the brunt of those decisions, right? Because if I'm scaling back police, or I am demonizing law enforcement, particularly, again, I'll say it again, they did a study, they meaning Gallup did a study, did a poll, and asked thousands of Black Americans, over 1,000 Black Americans, were they in favor of defund the police? You've heard me say it over and over again. I mean, Newsweek published the poll, Reason published the poll. 81% either wanted more or the same levels. 81% against defunding the police. Black Americans specifically, right? But how did it happen anyway? Well, it happened because those who were making the decisions did it based on their emotions, based on their agenda. And those like Black Lives Matter, like Jewish Voice for Peace, who then somehow had Israel tied into the whole discussion, which should never have taken place, right? So again, we've written articles on it. You can go to ibsi.org, and there's multiple articles, not just about that, but a lot of different these topics. You go to ibsi.org, click on Africa Israel Weekly, and then you will see there a lot of different articles that we've written on these topics and many others, and check that out. It's free to join. You have to subscribe. It's a Substack. You have to subscribe, I believe, to check them out. But you can do a free subscription. You can do a paid subscription. All of it helps us do the work of Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel as well. So we appreciate you. So that is on that study. So go check that study out. And I said we saw our last video, our last of a series of 7. We'll be doing some other ones, but it's actually entitled The Anti-Semitism of Black Lives Matter. We actually will unpack what we are talking about, that not only has this thing been lethal in terms of demonizing cops and making these communities like Oakland, like Baltimore, like San Francisco, like making them more unlivable, many of those places. But it also brought in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which had nothing to do with the discussion of police brutality or the criminal justice system, any of those things, right? How the Black community being used. So we actually did a video on that. We just shot it. It should drop sometime around mid-October, and we'll be letting you know about that. Again, we entitled it The Anti-Semitism of Black Lives Matter, so that we can actually discuss this. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there is no justice without truth. You are not going to get to a place of justice of true equal access, of a true level playing field, and people having the opportunity to excel in their gifts, talents, and abilities, regardless of their race and ethnicity and gender and all of those things. You will not get to that place without speaking truth. If you're going to tell lies, if you're going to do obfuscations, deceptions, what you will get is always that in return. There'll be more injustices, right? More pain, more drama, right? More exploitation, right? Lying to and deceiving people is a form of exploitation. So when the Israeli-Palestinian conflict comes up, instead of having a real discussion, say things like Israel's committing genocide, not only is it not true, right, but it's actually keeping from having real discussions about, for example, what's really going on with people in Gaza, what's really going on with the people of Judea and Samaria, the Arabs who live in what we call the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. So there are certain debates being had, whether on social media and different forums, that IPSI has purposely left alone. Not that we don't deal with controversial things. There's deep discussions going on about judicial reform in Israel and the debates that's happening both in the States and there. There's a real controversial and unfortunate thing going on with this hashtag ban the ADL. Some people have been looking for us to say we haven't touched it at all. What's unfortunate is that this fight and this discussion has so much mixed into it, right? Politics and racism, anti-Semitism. Some people who are saying ban the ADL, they're citing, some of them are Jewish, and they're citing where they feel the ADL has lost its mandate. And then there are many who are just anti-Semites who are using that same hashtag, and they're talking about the Jews, this and Israel, that. It's a mess. And it's a mess that has been brewing for a very, very long time. The reason I'm bringing that up with you is that when deceptions and lies and all these other types of things happen, justice just gets completely buried, right? And it becomes very incumbent upon those who are involved to truly operate in a spirit of wisdom. What do we need to address? How do we address it? And how do we come to the truth? This is one of the reasons why we often return to that theme of the anti-Semitism and the Jew hatred and the Israel hatred that's rampant on many college campuses. How many of these students are learning all kinds of completely untrue things or warped things when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or they're learning about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as if it's the only conflict on the planet. It's that nothing else is happening anywhere else except for there. There could be peace all over the world if those Israelis would stop X, Y, and Z. They're learning these fallacies, right? And they're graduating with their little degrees, and they can't find Gaza on a map. And these things do not promote peace. They actually promote more bloodshed. I saw an article pop up from JNS and says that the terrorist who killed Ari Fould, a very well-known Israeli Jewish gentleman several years ago, that the PA, the Palestinian Authority, just doubled their payments to pay for slay. We have some serious issues that have to be dealt with. But when the lies and the distortions are there, it makes it very difficult to deal with root issues and deal with actual truth. So this is what we try to do, kind of push past all of those things and all the distractions and the deceptions and deal with what we feel are some rudimentary, some very, very fundamental things that happen. This is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. This is the Forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. I'm Dumisani Washington, CEO and founder of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I don't have our co-pilots with me, Olga Meshoe. I don't have Meshoe Washington, Joshua Washington, who is on his way to Paris for a couple of music performances that he's doing. He's actually planning some Africa Zion performances that'll be happening here in the States a little bit later on in the fall and in the spring. So stay tuned for those as well. Go to ibsi.org to learn more about what we are doing so that you can be a part of it as well. We want to connect with you and want to make you aware and hear from you as well. So thank you so much. But again, we are here every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, having the discussion, again, that pertains to Israel, Africa, and Black America. This is being streamed YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, And on also we are there on Clubhouse as well. Again, it's not public, they're telling me, and again, they're going to fix that. I know I apologized that before. We will fix that to make sure that the people can see it beyond the actual Clubhouse, the IBC Clubhouse. All right. Next thing I want to actually address here, and I have my little bullets here so that I don't get lost and I don't start to ramble too much. There was a visit of Black American imams, these leaders within the Muslim faith, who went to Israel, I think sometime in August. And there have been a couple of different articles that are written about it. What is interesting is that you have a dichotomy, an increased Israel hatred, anti-Zionism that we see in the West, sometimes in the media, definitely on the college campuses, all of these things. And at the same time, this growing affinity and the connection to Israel from different ethnic groups. I've been sharing some stuff from Athletes for Israel, these NC2A ball players going there and going to the land and everything. And but here, this was a very, very interesting story. Check this out. And I want to share it with you. I think I-24 News, again, we don't work for I-24 News. We don't. I knew a couple of people who work there. So if you see us use some of their videos just because they do great videos, we have other ones that we'll share as well. So those of you who've been kind of following us, this is like the second or third one that we shared from them. But it's just a great video, about a minute and a half or so. But Maria, if you have that on there, I want you to load that up. I want you to check this out that just happened just a few weeks ago in Israel.
Walking through history, and a complicated one at that. This delegation of African-American imams is traveling through Israel with a shared purpose, promoting faith-based peace.
We have more in common than we have in differences.
Something they learned through a tour of the ancient Jewish quarter in the old city of Jerusalem, taking time to pray at the Western Wall before journeying beneath the stone surface.
Just to be able to touch it. 2,000 years ago, we're here. And we can kind of think back, but we can't go back, but we kind of think back. But we have something that's back from the past in our present.
Lessons from history that help shape the present.
This is a reminder for us how close we really are. We overlay each other. We are part of each other.
The trip was hosted by Sharaka, meaning partnership in Arabic, a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 following the historic signing of the Abraham Accords.
I think the support they can get from the United States, along with what they're doing in the Middle East, this will help us all as just one human family, see each other as brothers and sisters, and now we can find a way to help the rest of the people find peace.
Israelis, Arabs, Jews, Muslims, and Christians all working together in partnership.
One of the things that was mentioned a couple of times is that Jerusalem is a model, because we see the mixture of different religions, different ethnic groups, but all sharing a common history. I think it's important as leaders, as teachers, first you have to know what you're talking about.
Spiritual leaders from half a world away, connecting to their Abrahamic faith, gaining a new perspective to help shape a future geared toward peace.
So those who are listening from Europe, particularly on IG, Instagram, and then on Clubhouse, you weren't able to see it. That video was from I-24 News, a little segment about these imams, these Black American imams who just visited Israel. Sharaka, I believe, is the name of the organization that was formed for this very purpose, as inspired by the Abraham Accords, right? So you have the Abraham Accords happening, which is a regional thing, Israel's peace negotiations and a relationship with the UAE, later on with Morocco. There's discussion with Saudi Arabia, although there's some kind of back and forth that's there. Sudan. I mean, Chad was a major player. I might share that another day, not today, but Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, credited the president of Chad with actually playing a huge role where the Abraham Accords were concerned. I believe we just celebrated the third year, of the Abraham Accords, 2020, just not too long ago. So these Black American imams travel with this organization inspired by the Abraham Accords and wanting that. You heard some of their own words, and you saw the different, if you saw, you may not have seen them, you may have heard they were from Washington, D.C., from Dallas, several different cities, about 8 or 9 of them. I may be saying the number wrong, from different cities throughout the country. And they were there wanting to and brokering more peace, more understanding, more unity, which is what's the point, right? And so you have this very, very interesting thing happening where the Black American community is concerned, be it Christian, whether it be Jewish, whether they be Muslim, that you have this growing sense of Israel, its connection with Black Americans, again, of different religions, even, right? And the importance of the Black American voice in helping foster peace, understanding, unity, all of these things. Again, now that concept isn't new. What I'm saying in terms of a renewed, I watch it in the context of a rising Jew hatred in the West, right? Happening throughout, right? White, black, it's happening, right? But at the same time, that's not the only thing that's happening. There's this parallel move in which there are those who are actually connecting and feeling this sense to either go to Israel to connect on a deeper level with the Jewish community or with others. You have it's amazing because one of the things, and I see a phone thing that's or something else. One of the things that one of the imams said was almost verbatim with one of our IPSI ambassadors. We took our IPSI ambassadors to Israel in June. In South Africa, they went to the motherland, which was December, and in June they went to the Holy Land, and they talked about the fact that this is thank you, ma'am, the Sharaka Elizabeth, one of our MC ambassadors right there, Sharaka, she posted it there in the chat and you can see it there, their website. I believe that is the website, ma'am. Thank you very much. I think I saw that before. So absolutely. So that organization dedicated to fostering that type of peace reached out to these Black American imams and brought them to Israel. And one of the things that one of the imams said is that he saw different religions. Now he said he basically talked about Jews, Christians, Muslims, other faiths, other just there in Jerusalem. He said Jerusalem is a model, right? It's amazing. Not only Israel, not this Nazi apartheid, all this other stuff that gets used and as a slander. Again, that becomes something that furthers injustice. But the opposite is true. Israel's no more perfect than the other nation, but you're talking about 100 different nations that are represented there, Jews and non-Jews from literally all over the world. They're different religions, they're different, like again, ethnicities, but live together in peace, right? Goodness gracious, how much more peace could there be if it wasn't for the Hamases and the Islamic Jihads and that type of thing, right? So you have this actually happening now, serves as a model. So when that Black American imam says Jerusalem serves as a model, this is some of the same thing that our IPSI ambassadors did. They went there and they go, okay, I see this. And there was no sugarcoating, right? We had difficult conversations about what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in the West Bank, with the difficulty that I remember when we went to the I'm forgetting now, Rambam Hospital in Haifa. And one of the young ladies who was actually showing us around was telling us that there has been an increase in violence among the Arab communities amongst themselves, right? There's been a lot of Arab on Arab violence where they are there in the northern part of the country. And the only type of trauma unit and everything that's there in that part of the country, they receive basically all of the type of medical things that happen in that part of the country. And they've seen such a spike, she was saying, even within the communities, and for many different reasons. There was another, wasn't prepared to bring that particular link, but they were saying there's so much fighting going on in some of the Arab populations and in some of the Palestinian controlled areas that the Palestinians, some of them there, the civilians are like, are migrating away, trying to get away from the fighting that's inside. So it was posted, people like, that's because the Israelis are pressing this, that, and the other. This is not what's happening. There are actually some in the Arab Israeli communities that are asking for, get this, I talked to a few of them, more law enforcement so that there'll be more law. They want more, they don't want police brutality, right? They want more effective law enforcement because of the Arab against Arab violence that's claiming the lives of innocent Arab Israelis and some in the Palestinian territories, right? They're saying, hey, you guys, we need to come up. They're not saying, because they're not saying Israel is our problem, because they're not complaining about the apartheid thing. They're not, because that's not what their message is. They are being ignored. If you're not going to demonize Israel, we don't want to hear about it, right? Meanwhile, they're trying to live their lives with their children and their families like everyone else. Very similar to what's going on in Oakland. Very similar to what's going on in Baltimore. What are they saying? They're saying that this pullback of the cops and this lack of the resources for law enforcement. I told you the NAACP in Oakland called for state of emergency, and I don't want to get onto that again. We talked about that before. Very, very similar, right? Very similar, because their talking points are not what other people want to hear. Then they get ignored, right? And this is what's very, very important. So here are Black American imams traveling from DC, from Dallas, from different places, all the way to Israel to foster peace. They're learning, they're seeing, they're watching, they're asking questions, and they are seeing their role. Once again, these men, I don't know any of them personally, but they have their professional lives and careers and everything. Here they are in Israel, concerning themselves with their and gleaning inspiration, insight, knowledge. That's one of the gentlemen said that we're gaining more knowledge. We're learning these things, right? What is making these Black Americans go all the way to Israel and learn and see and share and contribute? Well, something must be deep, very happening. Something must be happening, obviously beyond the headlines, obviously beyond the media, social media folks who want to bash Israel and everything. Somehow these Black, just like the HBCUs, there are several HBCU presidents and heads who just went to Israel not too long ago as well, and then doing the academic studies and the different cultural studies and everything. It's amazing. So many are pushing past all the lies about the Jewish state and all of the unfair reporting, and actually going there to see for themselves, gleaning certain wisdoms and different things that they can, contributing in different ways that they can, and coming back and bringing that to their communities. It's amazing how that's happening. It seems to be happening more and more. Which brings us, ladies and gentlemen, in a moment here to this final piece. So again, check that out. We have those links that are there. That I-24 link, if you can, just go and drop that in there if I didn't do that already. There's two different articles. One was from the Spectator magazine, Spectator site, and also from I-24. So we actually have a couple articles that you can check out there. The second one is actually sent to us by our friends at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Shout out to Dan Diker, who's the president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Amazing organization. Doing amazing work. We've shared some things about them as well. They are our principal partners there in Jerusalem, along with CAM, Combat Anti-Semitism, Mr. Sasha out there. Shout out to him as well. And they're bringing people together from all over the world there. Again, inspired by the Abraham Accords. It is amazing. We were there, my wife and I, in March for the first ever Arab Africa Israel Summit that was hosted by the JCPA, Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. And once again, just like those Black American imams who just went to Israel in August, you had a delegation. There's about 30 different African nations and Arab states all together there, represented there in Jerusalem. We talked about, not me, I wasn't on program, but they were food security, water security, counterterrorism, national security. It was an amazing moment, right? These have the Ethiopia and Ghana and Chad and South Africa and just all over the continent, right? In different parts of the Arab world. This is happening, ladies and gentlemen, and it is a very powerful thing. And one of the things that we were saying with the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel is that the Black American voice, just like those Black American imams, the Black American voice needs to have a seat at that table in terms of the region coming together. This very, very powerful moment in which Israel and former enemies like Sudan, former enemies like Morocco, actually forming peace, understanding peace accords with Israel. And so this is a moment in time, right? While unfortunately, much in the Western world, Jew hatred, anti-Zionism seems to be increasing. At the same time, you have some amazing things happening, like these Black American imams going, like all these African leaders and different heads of NGOs and business people and everything coming for this huge conference in Jerusalem. And it's happening just constantly, right? So we're seeing this, and it's an exciting, this amazing thing that's going on right now. So which brings me to this. I want to turn this biblical to a certain degree here, because there's a theme that IPSI is working with that's actually the foundation for some of the events that we are doing. I told you right before I joined you here, I was teaching virtually a class that's it's based in Milwaukee, but from students across the country, with the World Bible Training Institute, about this issue of Israel and Africa and the prophetic call of God. That very title, Africa and Black America's prophetic call to Zion, that particular title, is the name of and topic overarching what we are kind of walking through as IPSI now and teaching different pastors, different leaders, different churches. So tomorrow, that particular one, and I don't have a graphic for that one, but you can go to ibsi.org/events. It should be there on the screen. You see the QR code as well. Tomorrow, every third Tuesday night, and that happens to be on tomorrow, Tuesday, September the 19th, we will be leading a 3-part discussion. Pastors invited. They don't have to be pastors, different church leaders. You can register for it. It's on Zoom, but you can register for it there at that website, ibsi.org/events. You can see the QR code there. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern, same time tomorrow, 24 hours from now, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll start a 3-part series entitled Africa's and Black America's Prophetic Call to Zion. It is based largely on the biblical story of the Queen of Sheba, whom the Ethiopians call Makeda, visiting King Solomon in Jerusalem 3,000 years ago. What happened in that meeting, the prophecies that went before that meeting, what that meeting actually meant, and then we'll look at some other scriptures and connect it to the geopolitics of today. That visit of who again the Ethiopians call Makeda, it's recorded both in the Jewish history, which is 1 Kings chapter 10, I believe it's in the Chronicles as well, in the prophets portion, 1 Kings of the Tanakh, and then it's also recorded in Ethiopian history, the Kebra Nagast, the glory of the kings. And it's also said that they had a child together, Melanik, who becomes, obviously, he's a royal blood from both Ethiopia and from Israel. And the Rastafarians believe that Haile Selassie, the last emperor of Ethiopia, was actually descended from Melanik from 3,000 years ago. So now we don't deal with a whole lot of that. We discuss it somewhat, but what we're going to be doing in these studies, as we're doing on tomorrow night, and then also, if you have that link there, we will be in Atlanta, Georgia this Thursday. We will have a live discussion of Africa's and Black America's prophetic call to Zion. I forgot to tell the class that I was teaching. Forgot. I hope I wasn't going too fast, because I do talk fast. With Pastor Matrilla Hall of Faith to Grace Ministries, right? So I hope I'm seeing all that correctly, making sure I'm looking at my screen here. Yes. So if you are in the Atlanta area, we want you to join us in at Faith of Grace Ministries. You'll see the link that's there, Pastor Matrilla Hall. We'll be starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time there in Atlanta. So 7 p.m. We're going to be having that discussion live. We're going to be doing it virtually on tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. But in Atlanta, we'll be there live to have this discussion, Africa's and Black America's prophetic call to Zion. It's not just a Bible study, although the Word of God is good. We're going to actually be talking to Pastor Matrilla. There she is there. Pastor Hall is there. We're looking forward to this. Yes, ma'am. We are looking forward to it. Pastor Hall is there in the house there right now. We've been talking over the past couple of months. We've been planning this. We were looking forward to it. We actually had on the books a Milwaukee one as well, but we kind of put that one off to the spring. So we will be there in Atlanta in a few days. Pastor Hall, we're looking forward to being with you all there. We'll have copies of the book. So if any of you are there in the Atlanta area, we'd love to see you there. Again, the link is right there on the screen. So you can RSVP. We just want to get an idea who may be coming in the area, who may have seen it online, everything. We'd love to have you join us there. We're going to be talking about this starting from that point. Several scriptures in the Christian Old Testament, the Jewish Tanakh, and a couple there in the New Testament, right, as well. But we're going to be connecting it to right now. We are going to talk about what it meant biblically for Africa and people of African descent. Why was Africa singled out the way that she was there in Psalm 68, verse 31? Why was there prophecy about the kings and the royalty coming out of Cush, coming out of Mitzrayim, coming out of Cush, coming out of Egypt, coming out of Ethiopia? What was the purpose of that when David said that? And then why was that partially fulfilled when the queen of Ethiopia, when the queen of Sheba came and visited Solomon? Why did she bring those gifts that she did? Why did she declare the things that she declared there? Why was that such an important point that even in the New Testament, Jesus himself refers to that same meeting 1,000 years later? He refers to what actually happened when he said the queen of the south came from the ends of the earth to see Solomon. He actually discussed that there. Why is that connection there? Why, even in modern day, when Africans and people of African descent make pilgrimage to Israel, there's this deep connection that's there. I have many Israeli friends of different ethnicities who said to me, Dumisani, it's something about when Africans come here, there's something when we see them praying or when we're fellowshipping with them or we're kicking it with them, there's something about that relationship. I have to kind of chuckle. I said, because there was something that was birthed in the spirit realm, in the prophetic, there in Scripture. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about it in terms of the modern day. Why was the connection between Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald so deep? How much was that forecast? Dr. King and Joshua Heschel, in terms of civil rights, in terms of education, these things that have actually impacted the world globally, right? And for a long period of time. And what does that mean now? Just like those Black American imams who traveled to Israel and they talked about how they were impacted, why they went there, what they saw their role as, everything. Why is that such a thing? Why is that such a moment in time right now? And the other side, why is there such a desire for different bad forces to pull apart, to sow discord and hatred between Africa and Israel, to sow discord and hatred between the Black and the Jewish communities, right? What's going on? We're going to peel back some layers and actually have that conversation there. We're going to have it live there in Atlanta. We're going to begin to have a 3-part of it here together on Zoom on tomorrow. So again, you can register there for Atlanta. We want you to join us there. And if you want to join us online on Zoom, it won't be streamed like this is here. The Zoom one is a private one, although it will be recorded and be shared with those other pastors and everything as well. And we can get into discussion. Again, I said it to you, I'll have copies of my book, Zionism and the Black Church. Much of that is actually addressed there. There's also a message that I was privileged to preach at Hope Community Church there in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Bishop Paul Lanier, back in September 2021. We've shared that link on YouTube with others as well, because it kind of shares our heart in some of where the discussion goes. I love being able to do it live because we're able to have the conversations and have some back and forth there as well. It's amazing. Whenever we, do I see, oh, there we go, Conley, Georgia. That's right. There we go. Yeah, Colney. Event is in Colney, Georgia. I hope I'm saying it right. Colney, Conley, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta there. And again, if you do that QR code, if you see that link there, you'll see exactly where we're going to be. And again, we're looking so forward to having you there. I made the comment to our staff before. Right now, for example, if you were to go on IBSI's Facebook page, for those of you who are already seeing on Facebook, you can just log and scroll and you can see. One of the posts a couple of days ago was from a group called Athletes for Israel. And it is a group of basketball players, college ones. I believe they're from Auburn and a couple of them maybe from Kansas State. Yes. Men's basketball players. One in particular, one of the last ones, not the very last one, one of the last ones, is these players. Not all of them are Black. There's a couple of white players that are on there. They are wishing a Shana Tova to their Jewish friends in Israel. Right? It's a short little thing, got some music behind everything, is cool. And one young man there, Shana Tova, has had a great time in Israel, and and then a couple of the coaches, everything like that, right? Most of the players are black. I'm saying this for a reason. It is when Ipsy posts things like that, either black Jews, whether it be Ethiopian Israelis or others, or black Americans who may not be Jewish and are doing something like, hey, shout out the Ethiopian Israeli runner a few months ago who in one of the international games placed very high and everything, and he won the gold. And we talk about the negative. I'm not dwelling on the negative. I want you to hear me. It is when, and you can look for it yourself, particularly on Facebook, the most nasty, negative, deceptive, wrong the response that it gets. Here's the thing: all kinds of posts go on our Facebook page, right? There might be a news thing, it might be Black Americans doing something, like different ones that will deal with all these different issues. What gets the most virulent and negative response, seemingly, is whenever those people, there might be fake accounts and then just different various haters, whenever they see black folk saying anything positive about Israel, doing anything with the Jewish community, I'm telling you, the spam, right? We have to go there and block people and hide stuff and everything. And free Palestine. They could just be saying, hey, like this, Shana Tova. They're called, I'm not going to even repeat the name. They're calling them all kind of names, right? I'm not saying it because my feelings are hurt. I want you to stay with me. The most emotional response that often happens on social media is when others see black folk in Israel, like I believe it was the HBCU presidents, everything. It's amazing. Now, hear me. We can post all kinds of things, Israel this, Israel that. It's when they see black people, whether they're black Jews or non-Jews, in Israel saying something positive, just a shout out, Shana Tova, which is a Happy New Year, whatever. Like those are the posts. And it's funny, it's also funny because of algorithms, because we've been slammed by like Facebook for the longest. I mean, there's been all kind of shadow banning, for a long time. And it just is what it is, right? It just, we will post something that's got like 13,000 followers and nobody will see it. Post something, been up there for 5 years, one view. That and we know it's true because we go back earlier before it was that bad. It got a lot of engagement, because very little engagement on Facebook. That's Mr. Zuckerberg and his team, whatever, right? When I'm going to keep doing what we're going to do, right? But what's a trip is that when the haters come on, the haters are always outnumbered by the positive people. They always are. It's just that the haters make the posts kind of blow up, right? So now that particular one that I posted a couple of days ago from Africa for Israel, where they're just saying Shana Tova, right? Then, several of the black players of the different teams saying Shana Tova. There's a lot of negatives on there, but most of it is positive, and it's got like 3,000 something views now, right? Now, what happens is that when we post something like that, and the haters get on there and they share it and they make all these different emojis and stuff like that, what they're doing is they're making other people aware of it, because social media, right? Every time you comment on it, your friends actually see it, right? And the point that I'm making is this. It's when black people, African or black American, when they are in Israel saying something positive or doing something positive, that's when most of the haters come on. Question: why does that stir such emotion? And they'll often say that you're black, you're not supposed to be standing with apartheid. They're the most racist people, are anti-Zionists. Some of the most racist people on the planet are Israel haters, right? Because the first thing they're gonna tell you to do, what you need to do as a black man, as a Negro, that's the first thing they'll do. They'll know nothing about what you know. They just see blackface Israel and they lose their minds. I think it's funny, but I also recognize the spiritual part of it. See, there's a connection that's there. And whenever they come together, see, we have this old tradition in church. Ain't nobody mad but the devil. You ever heard that term before? Whenever they see the connection, those types of haters get very angry. So you know what? For all the haters, get more angry, because you're going to see it more. This, when we're discussing this Africa's and Black America's prophetic call to Zion, We'll be talking about what was happening when the Queen of Sheba came to Jerusalem, why it speaks prophetically thousands of years later, and what's going on right now. The book of Isaiah, chapter 2, is this invitation. It said, all the nations of the earth shall flow to Zion. They'll say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out from Zion goes forth the Torah and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Isaiah lived around the 8th century BC. The Queen of Sheba was around the 9th century BC, meaning a couple of centuries before the royal invitation went out to the nations through the prophet Yeshayahu to come to Zion. Africa was already there. The Queen of Sheba comes all the way to Jerusalem before Isaiah is even alive to write, and the nation shall flow to Zion. Before he even says it, here comes the Queen Makeda flowing to Zion. Why was that so crucial then? And then for you Christians in the house, all the way to Acts chapter 8, the Ethiopian Jew, I made this case before, and I'm getting ready to have to bounce here in a minute, saying, it calls him the Ethiopian eunuch who was leaving Jerusalem and headed back to Ethiopia. And some have said, other writers have said that eunuch could have been a generic term, not so much literally a eunuch, but also generic term because he was over the queen's finance. So sometimes that term was also used for those who served in a high position in terms of the royalty in Ethiopia. But there seems to be so much evidence that he was Jewish. First of all, he's worshiping in Jerusalem. Who makes pilgrimage all the way to Jerusalem? And except for somebody who's going to go worship at the temple, why would you do that? And he was probably there during the holy days of both of Pesach and Shavuot, Passover and the Feast of Pentecost, the Feast of Tabernacle. I'm sorry, the Feast of Weeks. And then also it says he's in his chariot reading Isaiah. So not only he's going up to Jerusalem to worship like a Jewish man would do, he's also reading Isaiah, and we know it's Isaiah 53 because they actually Luke, who's writing the book of Acts, actually quotes from it, right? So he's actually reading from that. And then Philip, the apostle, asks him, do you know what you're reading? He said, I don't know if I fully understand. I need somebody to kind of break it down for me. Philip gets in the chariot and he goes with his large entourage. This very wealthy man. He's not traveling by himself, right? So he joins with him, and there's no big to do about him joining the chariot of a Gentile. It doesn't say anything about this person being a Gentile, right? As a matter of fact, those Bible students, you know your Bible, it's Acts chapter 10 when Cornelius, who is a Gentile, actually has an encounter with Peter, and it makes a big stink about it because he's a Gentile, and Peter goes to his house. So if the Ethiopian eunuch is a eunuch or he's a Gentile particularly, then why is there no mention of him? And why is he traveling all the way to Jerusalem to worship? And he's going back, reading the Tanakh. He's reading the prophets. Seems like a very devout Jewish man. That's my opinion, making my case. Well, that story very uniquely placed right there in Acts. And for you Christians in the house, that is the only story like it in the book of Acts, where he then gets baptized and takes the gospel of Jesus into Ethiopia. Other than that, it's the Acts chapter 2 when the whole Pentecost, and then those who were baptized there, the 3,000, right? And talk about all the different nations that they've been to. But this particular man, this Ethiopian, has a private audience with Philip, gets baptized, and then takes the gospel. It talks about, so that's why I would kind of tease my Armenian friends when I was in college. I went to the San Francisco Conservatory of Music, very, very small college, 200 student body at that time. And we had different folks from literally all over the world. And I used to tease one of my Armenian friends. She would say, Dumisani, we are the first Christian nation. And when I kind of chuckled, I said, well, Ethiopia's Christian status actually started in Acts chapter 8. Now, unless you can go to the Bible and point to it, I would jokingly, right? We wouldn't have a theological deep discussion. But what's always funny to me is that here is this story about this Ethiopian that's treated differently, almost like the queen who visited Solomon at that point 1,000 years earlier, right? So what are these connections? And when you're talking about the Negro spirituals, and most of them being in the Tanakh, go down Moses and Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and did my Lord deliver Daniel? What is this deep abiding connection in terms of the Hebrew scriptures and the music and all of those things within the African diaspora? Why was it spoken that way? And when you get to things like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Dr. King being asked to weigh in, why the civil rights movement, why the PLO targeted Black folks in the United States and in Africa. Why was the Black community always being pulled into the Palestinian-Israeli conflict? Why was that always the case? Well, other people were Pastor Muzani as well. But why is it called an apartheid state? That's Black South Africa, Zionism, racism, the civil rights movement. Why are these lies always pilfering from the Black community? There's spiritual reasons why, and there's a geopolitical understanding we need to have now. We'll be unpacking those things. We'll be having that discussion on tomorrow night online. We'll be having that discussion in Atlanta down there with Pastor Hall and the wonderful people at Faith to Grace Ministries. We're looking forward to it. We want you to join us, right? So join us online if you'd like to. We'll put the link up there one more time. Tomorrow, Tuesday, September the 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can register right there and join us on Zoom. And for those of you who would like to join us in the Atlanta area, we want you to join us there. Go ahead and register Thursday, September the 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be there. We're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to sharing with you. And pastors and church leaders that are there, we will be doing these events across different parts of the country, right? We're already making plans to be in Milwaukee in the spring. We're talking to different pastors, our pastors and our colleagues in different places in Chicago, in DC, in Southern California, and others. If you are interested in hosting one of these events in your church or in your community, please go to ibsi.org. You can click on events and find out about that particular one, or you can just email us at info@ibsi-now.org and let us know so we can connect with you. We would love to be there with you. We always try to make the cost as affordable as possible. There are some expenses that we have along with that, but we're willing to have that conversation with you. Go to info@ibsi-now.org. You can email us there, and we love to have those conversations with you. There's a timing that's happening here, ladies and gentlemen. There's a reason why the timing of this prophetic conversation, this conversation that's based in Scripture, that keeps getting played out in the geopolitical world. There's something that's happening there. It's warfare. It's opportunity, it's prosperity. We're talking about the blessing that's actually happening in these different parts of the region that can bring such hope to people who are so desperate and who are in such different, diverse, and very difficult situations and circumstances. All of these things are connected to it. So we're looking forward to having the conversation with you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the hour goes by so fast, but it's been great to be with you here. I hope this has been helpful for you. We do want to be hearing from you. Again, shout out to those of you on Clubhouse. That group is not public. The actual event is not, but we're going to make sure that it is. Those of you on Instagram, thank you for joining us. Everyone else there on social media. This is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I'm Dumisani Washington, the CEO and founder. You can join us each week here, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, for the Forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. Cues the music for me, Miss Maria, as we get making a head out here. Thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to being with you on next week. Same time, same place. You guys take care.